Good morning, folks. How are you all doing today? I'm just going to continue with Tug Morkel D.R.E.A.M.S framework and just read through my author's cut and edit from my book, Tug's Trek, which is my memoir of moral injury. This chapter is called Mandela's Black Sash. The first time I heard the name Nelson Mandela, it came not from a history book, but through whispers, hushed, wary, and forbidden. In our home, politics wasn't discussed around the dinner table. It was felt, not spoken. South Africa in the 1960s and 70s was a place where silence was a kind of obedience, and obedience was survival. But there were cracks showing in that silence, and through them, light began to leak. I remember my mother, quite quiet, resolute, and proud, pouring tea for a neighbour one afternoon. Naturally, it was always Joko. They spoke of the ladies with the sashes, women standing silently outside government buildings, their black sashes draped over their dresses. I didn't understand it then, but those women, members of the Black Sash, were protesting apartheid, the past laws, the cruelty, the injustice of a system that divided and degraded. They were the moral conscience of a frightened nation. I'd stand by the veranda, listening to the names of their supporters, Helen Suzman, and indeed Mandela himself. These were women who refused to look away. My father would scowl, muttering that politics and tea didn't mix. My mother's mother, Ruth Foley, was its first national president, and my father had great respect for her. I think my mother knew otherwise. She understood that even pouring a cup of Joko tea could be an act of quiet rebellion. Years later, I would come to realize that Mandela was not a myth, nor a monster, nor a saint. He was a man who carried a nation's moral injury within his own body and somehow chose forgiveness instead of vengeance. That idea would haunt me long after the war. The notion that a man could spend 27 years behind bars and emerge with grace, not hatred. At the time, I was just a boy trying to understand why some men wore uniforms and others carried placards. The uniform seemed safer, more certain. You followed orders, and the world made sense until it didn't. Mandela's black sash would come to symbolize something deeper for me, the thin, solemn line between right and wrong, between duty and conscience. It was a line I would later cross and recross in my own battles, in the special forces, as a farmer in Zimbabwe, and in my mind. But it began here, with women of courage standing silently, and a young boy, cup in hand, watching from the shadows, not yet knowing that he too, one day, would stand against something much larger than himself. As I reflect on this, in every age there are those who stand while others kneel. The black sash taught me that quiet conviction can be more powerful than noise, that conscience, not compliance, that defines character. As a soldier, I learned obedience. As a man, I began to learn courage of a different kind, the courage to question. So, have a happy day. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe, and see you in the next round. Cheers.